Well, it's over. Christmas is over. Cold weather's still here. It's the only thing I don't like about Christmas is the cold. But you know, when you think about Christmas, we think about Jesus. That's the month that we celebrate the birth of Jesus. Jesus. J-E-S-U-S. Jesus. You know, there's some people in this world, they don't believe in Jesus. I know this tricky one. They don't believe in Jesus. And that's sad. They're missing so much. Because Jesus is for everybody. Jesus is everlasting love. Some people don't think so. They don't want that. S, Son of God. Jesus is the Son of God. Some people don't believe that. They think he was just a man on this earth. And he was a man on this earth. But God put him here. The Son of God. You. When I think of Jesus, I think of him as being my umbrella. You know, when you're out in a storm, in the rain, the umbrella shields you. Jesus shields us from all harm. S, Savior. Jesus is our Savior. He loves us so much, he died for us on the cross so that we might live again. Some people don't believe it. Some people don't want to believe it. They don't. But you know what? What did Jesus say? Heaven and earth may pass, but my word shall never pass. Jesus is always going to be there. People are going to try to get rid of him. They're going to try to block him from being in our lives. But once Jesus is in your heart, he's there forever and ever. We should always remember that. Thank God for Jesus. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for your Son. Lord, thank you for Jesus, for the love that he has for us. Lord, he gave himself so that we could live. Thank you, Jesus. In your holy, holy name I pray. Amen.
What God shall we serve? The words from our text this morning are words from a great leader in Joshua. We know that for many years he led the children of Israel. And under his hand and God's hand, he gave him the land of Canaan, right? He had faithfully directed all their activities and all their goings on, and he had led them safely to the promised land. He had been like a father to them, Joshua had. And now at this time in our text, his work was over. That is, what God had called him to do originally was over, and he was being called up for something even greater, something even higher, something even more demanding at this time. And he goes around, he talks to the people about whom they're going to serve. And it's when he's talking to the people is when we hear those infamous words in our text. Choose you this day whom you will serve. But for me and my house, we shall serve the Lord. How many of you have something like that in your homes, on a plaque or a painting or something like that? Probably many of us do. And the people replied by promising that they would, in fact, indeed, serve the Lord and obey his commands forever. Just as the people in Joshua's day, like us today, we're going to serve something. We're going to serve, and for the point of this sermon this morning, let's say we're going to serve some type of God. Something. We're not as free as you may think we are. We don't have the free will as you may expect that we do. We're going to serve something. And again, for the sake of this sermon this morning, let's say it's some type of God. Now some say that we shall have no God rule over us, but everyone is ruled by something. Something. If we were to ask some great leaders of the past or some great people of the past what God that they served, what do you think they would say? For instance, let's ask Alexander the Great. Alexander, what God shall you serve? And he may say, well, I serve the God of military power and conquest. I'm always out conquering new lands. Or if we ask Plato or Socrates, what God shall you serve? And they may say, well, we serve the God of knowledge. We try to go deeper in thought and thinking than anybody else ever has. We try to learn as much as we can. And we go on to ask maybe someone of great inventions like Thomas Edison or Benjamin Franklin, what God shall you serve? And they'll say, we serve the God of invention. We're always trying to create new things and expand our knowledge and delve into the kingdom of science. And we can go on asking, artists like Angelo or Da Vinci or whomever, they may serve a God of creativity or a God of beauty or great thinkers, great scholars may serve God of wisdom or so on. Things they serve. But what if we were to ask great men of God? What if we were to ask David or Moses or maybe the Apostle Paul, what God shall you serve? And I feel confident that each would say, well, we serve the God of heaven, the God of glory, the one who existed before all else, the one who will exist after all else, the one who lives forever, the King of kings and the Lord of lords. This is the God that we serve. So this morning we're going to ask each and every one of you, or think about that, what God shall you serve? We all serve something, some type of God. Something that rules over us. Something that takes our time and our attention. Something. We've created these things. Let's look at some that we have created. Some of these, again, so-called gods that rule over us that we as human beings have created. The first one that I can think of is the God of possession, or the God of material things, materialistic things. The God of stuff. We all like our stuff, our possessions. If we look at 1 Timothy in chapter 6, verse 10, we know that famous verse as saying, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And it's because of this love that we have of money that we tend to break God's laws and we tend to desecrate God's holy day. Now again, it's perfectly okay, as we've talked about before, to go out and make as much money as you possibly can. To have as much wealth, acquire as many things as you have, as you possibly can. But it's important that we don't let that rule us. We don't let that become our one and only priority. It don't need to become our God. We don't need to put that above everything else. If we think back, and it's probably not too far ago, if we think back to Sundays, what was there to do on Sundays? You went to church and you went home because there was nothing else open. You couldn't go to the store, you couldn't go to the movies, you couldn't go to the mall or whatever because there was nothing open. It was the Lord's day. It was a day of rest. And now is probably perhaps one of the busiest days for most retailers, most restaurants, is Sunday. Has not God promised to take care of us if we obey Him and if we serve Him? Is it not written where if we work for 5 or 6 days, God will make our income last as if we work 7? Now, money is something that we need. It's something that's very crucial. It's something that we have to survive in this day of age. It's important. We all know that. We have to have it. And many good things can be done with money. For instance, we can build many churches. We can build many schools. We can provide funds for missionaries as they travel to the ends of the earth to spread the gospel. But when it becomes your God, it robs us of the highest joys of life that we have. What about the God of pleasure, the God of recreation, the God of enjoyment? Now, these things are certainly important. that we have to have. This nation is primarily built on these things. Everything seems to cater to our satisfaction, right, to our senses. Even on days like today, on the Lord's Day, is probably the busiest day for most amusement parks and even sporting events. People attend these things. We have so many things readily available to us as far as amusement, as far as pleasure, as far as recreation. Now again, there's nothing wrong with that, but we shouldn't let that be in control of us and all that we do. Because there are hidden dangers in things that look good, but are not always good for us. Things that lift our spirits or make us feel better or bring us happiness, certainly those things are okay. But it's important not to have those things rule us. We shouldn't worship worldly pleasures. And this is a kind of an interesting one, this next one here. As we look at the God of appetite. Now what does that mean? Appetite. Perhaps it means things that we crave, things that we hunger for, things that we desire, things that we want. In this modern era, we have pretty much anything readily available to us at our disposal. We can go to the store and buy whatever we want, or with the click of a mouse, we can have something delivered to our door without any effort at all. And after a while, we begin to feed off of this. We begin to hunger for it. We begin to crave this. It becomes addicting. And usually when we think of addiction, we think of things as drugs and alcohol and substances such as that. And certainly those things can be very addicting. But it can be anything from that, certainly, or food. It can be sweets. It can be television. It can be shopping. It can be any number of things that we crave, that we have a desire for, that we hunger for. And this becomes our God. It rules over us. And after a while, the trouble begins with these things that we begin to lose our sense of sin, thinking that it's okay. And the main reason I believe this happens is because of advertising. That is attractive advertising. Advertising, it brainwashes us. It brainwashes us to think that it's okay because people are promoting it. We're seeing everybody do it. We begin to think that it's okay for us to do it, that there's no harm will come because we see it so much and it's so readily available to us and it's just in our face all the time. What was once looked down upon is now done out in the open and it's just promoted everywhere. And that may be true, but that doesn't make it right. We shouldn't worship, as we're going to say this morning, the God of appetite. Or what about the God of health? Now you may say, well, what's wrong with that? We all want a healthy body, a good health. Strong body, that's something that's certainly important to all of us, and we should have that. After all, a strong, healthy body is a blessing. It's a blessing from God. But some put that even before the Lord. Do you ever know anybody that says, well, I worked hard all week. The weekend's mine. I need to do some things. I need to go hit the gym. I need to go to the golf course. I need to go to the tennis courts. Let me go down to the lake, or let me go somewhere else. Let me get some exercise. Let me get some rest. If we start promoting that, sometimes we use that as an excuse to take away some spiritual things that we may need, that we do need. The next one's even more tricky. The God of home and family. It's tricky because our home and our family should be our utmost priority. Is that not right? It should be the top of the thing, the top of the list. Our family. We protect our family. We protect our home. And that's true. But we have to make sure we understand that our family and our home stands for Christ, stands for Jesus, that we're faithful to Him and above all others. That is, anything that we do to keep us from Him is wrong. How many people do you know that have activities that they may go to? The first thing I can think of is these travel clubs with these ball clubs or whatever that takes you away and week after week after week after week, well, I got to do this. Well, that's fine, but don't let it control you. Don't let it rule over you. People put a lot of stock in social activities and social positions, keeping up with the Kardashians. And that's not the Joneses anymore, it's the Kardashians. They think these things are what's important in life. But the main thing that we need to focus on in our family is Christ. We need to put Christ first. That's the most important. And we do know those who serve the God of society, those social circles. Now, it's okay to have social circles. After all, we're social beings. We want to be around people. No one wants to be a recluse or a hermit. But let's make sure our social encounters, our social engagements, our social circles are uplifting, are encouraging, to have the finest fellowship. Because we all know that there's some of those social circles that are artificial. That is, those that draw us away from God and from the church. And it's easy to fall in those traps. Those kind that has no permanent joy or permanent satisfaction. How we use our time is important, because time is a gift. Time is a gift from God. And how we use it is important. Are we going to use it to bring glory to God and joy to others? Or are we going to use it and waste it on things that really benefit no one? What is the most beneficial? So the question still remains, which God shall we serve? Which God shall we serve? Well, I hope that you'll agree with me that we should serve the God of glory. The one true God, the one of heaven and earth, the King of kings, the Lord of lords, the Master and Savior. After all, think about what he's done for us. Think about what he's done for you this morning. If anyone deserves our very best, should it not be him? If anyone deserves our utmost attention, time, and effort, should it not be the one true God? Because his service is more satisfying than all these others. There's no regrets. With some of these other so-called gods we've talked about this morning, sometimes after we take part in these, that we feel guilty or we feel a little bit regretful. But when we serve the Lord, there's no regrets. There's no tears. Every sinner at the end of their life is regretted serving Satan. But for the multitudes that serve the Lord each and every day, at the end of the way, there's no regrets. There's no heartaches. There's no tears. And we should serve him because our influence in serving him will be stronger. People see us and people watch us each and every day, whether it be at work, at home, at the store, at the bank, and wherever we go. People watch us and they see us. And our Christian influence is a blessing. It's a blessed thing. What is your influence here in this church? What is your influence at work? What is your influence at home? What is your influence when you're around your closest friends? What is your influence when you're out by yourself? What do people see? And it would be a greater for good if you're a follower of Christ. How will you be remembered when you're gone? What will your influence be then? We should serve the one and only true God because the results are so much better. If we spend our life serving worldly things, these gods of pleasure and recreation and money and all this other stuff, this lasts a day. But if we spend our life serving the Lord, those results will last forever. We're using building materials that will never decay, never go away. They'll last and they'll stand forever. And finally, we should serve him because the rewards are far greater than anything else we could ever gain on earth. There's a joy in Christ that nothing else can give. None of these other things that we've talked about can give the same joy and satisfaction as Christ himself. What are the memories that you have now as you look back upon your life? What is your life gallery look like, in other words? As you look back through your photo albums, the pictures, the events of your life, do you see a life led by sin and served by sin, or do you see a life in service to God? For God promises us all the good in this world, and more importantly in the next. He just asks one simple thing, and that's for us to love Him, and to honor Him, and to obey Him, and to serve Him. And everything will be okay. We don't need these other gods to rule over us because we serve the one and only true God. So my hope is that today that you can say with me and say it with confidence that I will serve no other gods. From now on, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Let us pray. Father God, again, we do thank you for this blessed day, for each day that you give us as a blessing. Lord, we thank you for bringing us to your house as we've come to worship, as we've come to sing praises, as we come to be with you. Father, as we leave this place, go with us. Help us, Lord, to serve you, to not let anything else rule over our lives. Do not let anything else take priority of what we need to do each and every day. Father, help us to serve. And it's in Christ's name we ask these things.